If you're looking for a budget...
Oh, we are off to a rough start here. If this is the fence they're building, I think we're already off to a rough start.
A chain link fence is the way to go.
Is that? I think the bolts are on the outside of the fence. Now on that one, the nuts were on the inside. See, that one looks like it's on the outside. So maybe they're doing it each way. Some of the bolts are on the inside, some are on the outside. Bolts on the outside. What are we doing here? Is this a regional thing with the nuts going on the outside of the fence on this carriage bolt? It's got my OCD kind of going in overdrive here. The nuts should go on the inside.
Today's video is brought to you by our good friends over at Nationwide Industries, the Fence Pros' #1 choice. And they are this Fence Pros' #1 choice for a couple reasons. One, we love using their Keystone Traverse latches. They're easy to install. You simply bolt them onto the post. No drilling for rods or cutting the rods required. It's a pretty straightforward installation process. We also love using their full line of galvanized hardware. It shows up quickly and reliably.
All right, guys, today's video is titled How to Install a Chain Link Fence by Lowe's Home Improvement. If you guys watch the channel, you know we had recently done a video, that one's about concrete, I think, from Home Depot. So we figured we'll give equal time to Lowe's. Now, if you'd like to watch this video in its entirety without my commentary, we'll link that in the description below. With all that being said, let's see how they build a chain link fence.
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm a professional carpenter and remodeler. If you're looking for a budget...
Oh, we are off to a rough start here. If this is the fence they're building, I think we're already off to a rough start. We'll see. Hopefully this isn't the fence we're building.
...friendly fence option, a chain link fence is the way to go.
Is that? I think the bolts are on the outside of the fence.
Is to call your local utility companies and have them lay out all of your underground lines.
So that's a fair point. If you don't know exactly where your property lines are, have them surveyed by a licensed surveyor. Also, check your local building regulations. But the third point was a great one in that you always want to call your local one call. Here in Missouri, we've got Missouri one call. 811 gets you whoever it does the utility locating in your area. Anyone can do this, homeowners, etc., and it is a free service. There for a little while, we had a lot of people calling us asking if we could call in locates for their fencing projects that they were installing at their house. In Missouri, and I'm sure this is how it is in most every state, whoever's doing the digging has to call it in. So it wouldn't do any good for us to call in locates for someone else's project when we weren't the ones doing the digging. We're off to a good start so far.
We'll start with layout using batter boards, string line, and stakes.
You can really lay it out with paint. I don't know that stakes are necessarily important.
Then we'll mark our batter boards and temporarily take off the strings to make it easier to dig.
Typically, we would use a string line with just metal stakes on the property line in the back and on the sides, and then we would step in 6 inches. That way we don't have to take the line down and put it back up. Also make sure that no part of the fence encroaches on the neighbor, including the concrete foundation or footer that we're pouring around the post. I'm not sure what the story there is with the boards.
Because this is a terminal post, the hole will be a little wider and a little deeper than the line posts. For us, it's 8 inches wide by 30 inches deep. Always check local codes for setting posts below the frost line.
The typical industry standard is 3 times the dimension of your post. So typically terminal posts are 2.5 inches wide. So that would give you a 7.5 inch hole. 8 inches fine. 30 inches is also an ASTM standard minimum. Typically you'd want to find your frost line and then add 6 inches to it to make sure that you've got plenty of concrete footer underneath the frost line to avoid frost heave.
All right, 30 inches.
Now it looks like they're setting that post right in with their French drain, or however that water is draining away from the gutter there. You would typically want to keep those separate. You could easily have moved the fence on the outside, basically the other side of that corner, and to avoid that completely.
If you have a lot of holes to dig, consider using a power auger like this one.
Man, we used these power augers when I was a kid. I guess these augers may be great in an area with no rocks, no roots, with just like pristine soil. The old ones, I used to have these large rods coming off. 2 guys would hold on to them. But if those things hit a rock, those handles would then whip around and catch you in the side. There's another company here in town. A guy had actually broken a rib. He had a wide open throttle, caught a rock, caught him right in the side in the ribs, broke a rib. Walk behind auger would be a better choice here. Oh, look how quick that's going down. What a dream. Not a rock or root one. What I would do in this situation is move some of that dirt away from the hole. One, so it's not caving back in. Two, so that you make sure you're actually measuring to the grade, not to where you think grade might be.
Now that the hard part is done and all of our holes are dug, we can start setting our terminal posts. You'll notice that these are larger in diameter than our line posts. We'll first measure for our ground level.
I don't know what she's marking, but it's not ground level. It's less than 2 feet, so we'll see how this goes.
Once you've marked that, we're going to set it in a bed of dry concrete, and then we'll fill in around it with wet concrete.
This concrete discussion that's going on in the industry, there's so many different variations. It sounds like she's doing a mixture of methods. She's pouring in dry to begin with, and then pouring wet on top of it. Not really sure what this accomplishes.
And then we'll set our posts and attach our plumb line. And make sure that your line is level with the ground.
I will differ here in that I wouldn't want my string line attached to that post. I wouldn't want anything pulling on this post while that concrete's wet. So if she's using these stakes, you would set that stake behind the post, wrap your string around the post. That way you make sure that it is indeed, in line with that first terminal post. Would not attach anything to that post until it's really good and cured.
Keep it a couple inches below ground level.
They are setting that gutter drain just right in that same concrete footer with the fence post. If you ever tried to pull that post, if it got damaged, or if you ever needed to replace that gutter drain, those are tied together now for the life of that footer.
For the line posts in between, check the manufacturer's directions for spacing and hole size.
So industry standard 10 feet or less on chain link. The line post diameter will probably vary depending on region. Regardless, 6-inch hole on these posts. Now they show the holes being not as deep. You want to make sure those footers are, again, 6 inches under the frost line. Wouldn't look great if the frost heaved your line post, but not your terminal post, put a hump in that fence.
Set the line posts in the hole with concrete, just like with the other posts.
So it's curious, they're using fast set or quick set on line posts, but not on the terminals. They use the yellow bag, which is standard cure time concrete. They're going to have to come back later on to stretch this anyways now. They're going to have to wait for that concrete to cure. Using fast setting concrete on the line post, I don't think really accomplishes anything other than using more expensive concrete.
Just pour it in, plumb up the post, then add water following the directions.
We actually just did a video where they talked about using fast set, but they didn't compact the concrete at all. It's going to have air as you pour it in. Now, you would definitely want to compact this before you put water on top. I understand you want water on top to make sure that moisture penetrates concrete. I get it. But leaving it just loose isn't really going to hold this post where you want it.
Next, we'll install our hardware on our terminal posts. For each post, you'll slip on a brace band. Then tension bands, flat side to the outside. And another brace band near the top with a rail cup.
Interesting that they're putting the nuts and bolts in before they put the fabric on. Might be counterproductive here in a little bit.
And finally, the post cap.
Now on that one, the nuts were on the inside. Maybe I saw it wrong on that earlier. It looked like the nuts were facing out on that one. So we'll see.
So a 4-foot fence needs 3 bands.
This is a very good point. How many tension bands do you use on a fence? It's always the height minus 1. So as she's illustrating, 4 foot, 3 bands, 6 foot fence, 5 bands, always 1 minus the height of the fence.
On the line posts, add the offset post tops with the offset loop toward the outside. Then we'll just slide our top rail through the post top into the rail end cup and tighten the bolt.
See, that one looks like it's on the outside. So maybe they're doing it each way. Some of the bolts are on the inside, some are on the outside.
At the end, we'll mark the length of the last top rail and cut to fit. Then just tighten the end cup to secure the top rail.
You would want to double check the height of that rail and make sure it is set the proper height, or else you'll have to come back and readjust everything.
With the top rail set, add tension wire along the bottom. It should be about 2 inches off the ground and on the same side as the fabric.
Interesting that they didn't tension that at all. They just got it hand tight.
Now we'll install our fabric. We'll start by laying it out on the outside of our fence poles on the ground.
Be sure to walk all over it. Absolutely.
Secure it to the terminal posts with the tension bands and carriage bolts.
Bolts on the outside. What are we doing here?
After that, we'll stand the fabric up against the post and pull out any excess slack. I'm going to attach a few wire ties to the top rail to help hold it in place.
You know, if you're installing a fence at your house, this is probably the best way to make sure your fence stays tall as you are taking the slack out of it. If you're doing this as a profession, we sell banana clips for this exact purpose that can be reused. Shameless plug, ozfence.store.
If you have to remove any excess fabric, loosen a strand and twist it out.
So you'd actually want to tighten it before you took that out, because they're going to have to take another, looks like 3 or 4, probably 4 diamonds out. Once they get this tight, really just wait until that wire is tight. Go ahead and take it out once. That way you're not left with just a little piece of wire at the end.
Hook a stretcher bar to the tension bar and attach the come along to tighten the fabric. It's tight enough when you can squeeze it just a little bit.
It's not tight enough. You should just see that move a little bit. There is a real danger here of over tightening the wire. When you over tighten it, you'll stretch those diamonds out. They'll become oblong. And then when you let the tension off, they don't spring back. Fair point not to stretch it too tight, but as much play as she showed in that is probably not tight enough quite yet. Probably 1 or 2 more clicks.
Once it's tight enough, again, remove the excess fabric.
Yeah, so since they already took the wire off once, now they're left with this little piece that won't really be good for anything. Leave it on the roll. Do yourself a favor, just take it off once. Is this a regional thing with the nuts going on the outside of the fence on this carriage bolt? It's got my OCD kind of going in overdrive here. The nuts should go on the inside, is how I've always been taught. But let me know, maybe this is a regional thing. Do the carriage bolt nuts go in or outside of the fence?
Once you've done that, you can secure the fabric to the tension wire with wire clips. I use a little pair of pliers for this process.
Those hog rings they're using are incredibly light, especially if you can use it just with those basic pliers. There's no chance it's holding that on there. I like that they used a really heavy, looks like a 6 or a 7 gauge bottom wire here. These hog rings are, I don't even know what, maybe 12 or 13 gauge. So you go to kick the wire out, those are letting loose almost immediately. They're not holding the fence on there at all. You get a heavy dog against it, no way.
The fabric should install pretty easily with only a few tools and maybe a helping hand. Just be sure you don't stretch it too tight.
I like to see half a diamond above the top rail just to give it more of a look that I've been always taught that it should look like. Looks like these diamonds, that top knuckle is right in line, if not just a little bit above the top rail.
To attach another roll, you just twist in a single strand to connect the diamonds.
Now, the important thing to note here is that you have them offset so that they're willing to accept that extra strand.
The ends of the strand, the 2 pieces become one, and you can't even tell.
You should not be able to bend that by hand.
We use a 2x4 to hold the gate above the ground.
Oof. Well, the 2x4, so that gate is 4 inches above grade. Quite a bit, especially on these bent framed gates, because if you've got any sort of small animal, a small dog, it's going right through that opening. Absolutely. Probably a bit high.
Adjust the bottom frame hinge to attach to the bottom post hinge and tighten.
It's kind of mind-boggling. So the top rail of your gate should absolutely match the top rail of the fence. I don't know what they're doing with their gates here, but...
Now, once you've double-checked everything and tightened all your nuts and bolts, your chain link fence project is complete.
I don't know. As a professional, I don't know that there's many clients of ours that would pay us for that work. And to begin with, we wouldn't invoice them for that work. We would use it as a learning opportunity and redo the entire thing. Chain link height not set consistently throughout the fence. For us, the carriage bolt nuts facing out drives me nuts. Like, there's no way that's right. And the gates just being all wonky. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. For now, Joe Everest, fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors. I'll see you next time.